All right, we're back with another episode of Aftershocks TV at aftershockstv.com. And coming to us from the Tar Heel State, North Carolina, we've got drummer Tradd from doom-psych duo Crystal Spiders. Tradd, thanks for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Matt, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. October 1st, it marks the official release date of your band Sophomore full length on Ripple Music. It's titled Morieris. And, no doubt fans of this record, fans of your first record, Molt, I think are definitely going to be very happy. It's got that similar ambiance, but definitely some changes on it, which is really cool too. We'll talk about in a minute. But why don't you just, start us off by giving us just a brief rundown on how things are going with the build up to the new record right now and all the happenings that are going on in the Crystal Spiders camp.
Well, like everybody else has probably said already, is the rug kind of got pulled out from under us because we want to play a bunch of festivals. We want to play, Doomfest up in Maryland, and we'd love to be a part of the whole Ripple thing that was going out on the West Coast. But, with all the stuff going on, it just kind of like yoink. So so when that all happened, when we were trying to do all the press and the promotion for the first record, Brennan and I were like, you know what? Let's just go right back into writing. We still had a bunch of energy. We still had a bunch of songs. Like Brenna's always writing, like just constant notebooks all the time. So she already had a nice backlog to get rolling for this stuff. So we're like, let's just go right back in. So we only took maybe a month break off, then went right back, even with the quarantine and stuff, as we did the protections and stayed away and blah, blah. And did some remote stuff back and forth. But then we were able to get the whole thing written in about 3 months. And started with Dean like last fall. So
so
that's what we like kind of rolling on that stuff, and then we're just kind of biding our time and waiting for the world to get back to some semblance of normal, and then we'd love to go out and play again.
Sure. No, I mean, no doubt. You just brought up a good point about you guys. That's really unique. Is that this is for you guys? Is that this is your second now release that has come out during the pandemic. So as a band, I mean, the only thing you guys really know, at least with Crystal Spiders, is releasing music during a pandemic where you have no chance really, like you said, to get out there and play and tour for it or just get the word out. Obviously you've been in bands before. You're currently in another band, as you mentioned. We talked about before we got on here. You've obviously then, I'm sure, released some music prior to this pandemic, meaning you've been out there before releasing a record and knowing how it feels to release it, go out, play shows, and get the fans all excited, and just in general, just to really enjoy, the being able to get out physically, get out there and to celebrate your new work of art with your new record. I mean, how much of an effect really has it had on you in a way, spiritually and sort of psychologically, being that you've been there before when you've been able to go out and promote a record, and here you are with two really, really solid records, and there's really not much you can do at this point.
Well, it's kind of like a shot in the dark, you know what I mean? Because when when you're out and you're testing new stuff live, you're always evaluating the crowd's response. Where, the harder, faster stuff, we're like, okay, well, we had a little bit more energy the night before. At least from a rhythm perspective, is I'm like, maybe I should pump that up like 2 BPMs, like for the playing it live, or for the slower stuff, like if people aren't bobbing their heads, I'm not doing my job. So it's like I'm always trying to gauge, the BPMs and all that kind of stuff, and play it night by night. So with these records, I mean, we had a lot of the stuff that we did live and did a little bit of East Coast shows before we went in for into the studio for the first record. So we kind of had a good idea for that one, but this one to us was a total shot in the dark because we had no way to workshop it.
True, yeah.
So we relied a lot on Mike Dean to like make sure that the groove and the feel were good, because I mean, we had ideas of what we liked in practice, but again, when you lay that stuff down, it's always different when you play it live, and then you're like, oh, that feels so much better. But yeah, so it's kind of a shot in the dark.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can imagine it's got to be difficult, man. Well, you just brought up name Mike Dean, obviously. Mike Dean, the almighty Mike Dean from Corrosion of Conformity. He's produced this record just like he did on your last record, Molt. And not only is he producing your guys' records, but he's also playing lead guitar as well, especially on this one, which is crazy. I mean, we all, of course, know Mike is one of the great bass guitarists in hard rock and metal, but I never knew he had such chops on the axe. So, I mean, talk a bit about, talk a bit about working with Mike. And I mean, I know he's not, considered a full-time band member, but obviously because he doesn't, he wants to go out and play live with you guys, but he is obviously very instrumental, obviously, with the overall scope of the band, I would imagine, with the sound and just, in a way, I guess he is sort of an unofficial third member, I would guess, no?
He is. Well, see, he's an official member with Brenna's other project, Lightningborn. And so when they're in, that's 100 full-fledged. But for us, Brenna and I always had the idea of like, let's keep this as a duo. And then we can always outsource, different guitar players for different sounds and different things, like just to keep a nice open palette. Like similar to how like Big Business did on Mind the Drift when they brought in what's his name from the Melvin's Guitar Tech. They brought him in to play guitar on that record, and that just sounds totally different. So and stylistically, when you listen to Molt versus Morieris, I mean, you're going to hear a dramatic tone change from Deloach with that kind of hardcore punkier edge to it, and then Dean with the more like proto metal, more atmospheric stuff on it. So it leaves a lot of open doors for us. But in terms of like his axe skills, I'm trying to learn guitar the hard way, but just like plunking around and stuff. And I was talking to him about Robert Johnson, and he was like, "Oh, I'll totally show you that song." And he like pulls it out and just puts out some like old school Robert Johnson. I was like, that is amazing. Like, that's
pretty awesome.
So much people don't know about you and how, like, and your back knowledge of music. So, but no, working with him is awesome. It's just very low key. I mean, I've worked with a bunch of different producers over the years. Some are very micromanagey. Some are very, hey, go in and do whatever you want. And he's kind of a great mix in the middle. Like, he'll let you go and do what you want, and then you go back and listen. He's like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? And it's a very even flow kind of feel for him. What was different for me for working with him is our records are straight to tape, which is relatively new for me. Because usually, you're going in digital and you're either playing to a click or whatever. But I told him, I was like, I don't want to play to a click. Let's just do the completely natural. And he's like, yeah, sure, done. Like, let's do that. But I just love how he like works with the tape, manipulates the tape, and it gives you, in my opinion, a better groove overall.
Sure. Yeah, with the analog recording too is what you're referring to, right? Yeah. So I mean, how crucial really is that too? I know he said he did that. I know in the first record, and I was going to ask you if he did the same on this record. I mean, how crucial really is using the analog to your guys' overall sound that you're really looking to get on your records?
I would say yes for the records. Yes, I think it is very instrumental because was it JJ on the Obelisk just kind of posted that you can hear all the individual instruments very separately. So if you wanted to listen to one thing at a time, you could. And I 100% agree with that with the analog. Is you're not trying to mess with these little frequencies and do that stuff. Like, it is what it is. And it's just like, especially for like my drum stuff, right? Is I really want to make sure that the tones that I'm using are very, very specific and tuned perfectly each time, because that's going to shine through for the louder tom parts. Like, in my opinion, I can hear a difference. Like, I can hear a difference between the old like Geezer Butler kits and the bottom kits and stuff versus the new stuff. Even though they're playing, it could be the exact same kit, but if they're doing it digitally, I don't know. Some seems like it gets lost in the mix, and I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't tell you exactly why. But yeah, I don't know. It feels more honest. It feels more natural. You get more articulated. Yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, just, myself having recorded before myself, it's digitally, it's so hard to be able to get each instrument to sound on its own, like you mentioned, where if you're doing analog, it's a lot easier to be able to everyone to hear each instrument separately, as you mentioned, instead of all blended in together. Now, in terms of, we were talking about, earlier, the sound, the ambience from this record really compared to Molt. It's similar, I think, obviously the ambience, but sonically, as you were saying, yeah, definitely a lot different. For one, you mentioned it yourself before, the guitar influence, in terms of the rhythmic guitar is not so much there. It's really you and Brenna with your drums, especially out in the front. Her bass is sort of the driving force for the rhythm, and of course with Mike Dean's leads. So it's definitely more of a guitar presence that you guys had, I think, on Molt than this one. It also had more of a, to me, had more of a cleaner touch to it. It had a little more higher treble, I think, to the overall sound. Where this record, it definitely has that sort of classic, sort of doomy, atmospheric aura. You know, I guess sort of maybe in the same vein of like an Electric Wizard. It has more of that harrowing sort of essence to it. And I think it's important, you know, for a band really, like, you know, I mean, any band really to not rest on their laurels too often when it comes to recording a new release. I think it's good to switch it up like you guys did on this record, instead of just doing the same thing and having the same sound and tone and everything on all your records. So talk about really what you wanted to do, both you and Brenna, differently on this one that you didn't do on Molt, so that it wasn't essentially sort of a repeat of that record sonically.
Yeah, so when we started with Brenna and Deloach, is we kind of wrote them all three together. You know, somebody would bring in pieces or parts of a riff, and then we'd all kind of flesh it out together. With this release, we really wanted it to be a showcase for Brenna's songwriting style outside of just vocals and lyrics. The goal was like, let's have her, she's writing the whole kind of bass line in general, and I'm doing a little more of the arrangement kind of stuff, as opposed to and like fills and some like this, some of the stuff in Septics, you know, where drums are going to lead, then I'll take the lead on that. But for the most part, for the record, is Brenna kind of brought in almost a whole piece, and we definitely wanted something conceptual. We originally were on like Greek mythology kind of stuff. So there's the songs, most of them had more kind of Greco-Roman titles and more traditional stuff like that. But then as the record developed, we're like, nah, we don't need it to be, you know, too on the nose. So a lot of the titles changed, a lot of the lyrics changed. But from a holistic standpoint, is we just wanted something classic, something very proto-metal, something very like this record could have been released in like 76. You know, that kind of concept. And so when we were writing them all, we kind of left empty space on purpose for the guitar, because Dean had already mentioned that he's like, I totally want to play on that. What were we going to say? No, like, So we intentionally wrote like lots of empty space. So it really was written originally as just a bass and drums. And vocals, obviously. And then we left a ton of space open for the added pieces that we eventually added in.
Sure. Yeah. And speaking of these added pieces, there's stuff like certain orchestral, additions were put on. I mean, talk about some of the different things you guys experimented on with the additions, other than your bass guitar and just guitar with Mike.
I definitely wanted one really, really, really long song. I mean, I'm a big, I love Doom in general, but it's like at least one record on or one song on the record, I think needs to be, a nice big epic, something that you forget how long it's been on, type of thing. I mean, every record doesn't need a dope smoker, but like it could, something to like really just kind of zone out and drone out to. So for this one, it's in medias res. And I was very proud of the fact that I nailed that in one take.
Wow, very impressive. So,
yeah, I was like, it was, just the right mindset. And then you walk out of there and you're like, do I have to do that again? I'm like, I hope not. It was 8 minutes. Like, do I have to do that again? You're like, oh no, it's cool. We're good. Yeah, let's move on. But what's really cool about that one is Priestess Nighthawk from Heavy Temple is playing cello on that. Oh wow. Yeah, she's a friend. So all it took was one call, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm down." And we have some violin on there. We have some synth on there. We have I don't know. It was an idea to like play with a lot more textures. On the last song on Molt, when we were on for Fog, is the idea was like, let's play with textures, and we had to do it remotely at that point because of COVID. But it just opened up some ideas of like, we can add other instruments in here. Like we can put some keyboards on here if we want to. I mean, because it's just for the record. And obviously for the live set, we'll figure out something to make it work. But I don't know. I like it doesn't always have to be the same 4 instruments. Like, I mean, I'm a huge Morphine fan. So like, 2-string bass guitar, sax, and drums, done.
Good.
Sometimes cool instrumentation like throws it in a whole different way, and I don't know, it keeps it fresh too, like you were saying. Like everything's new and interesting.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. Absolutely. And you just brought up something too before about, you guys being a duo. Obviously it's something traditionally we haven't seen, but I have, it's becoming more common now. It's not so much an anomaly like it once was. I mean, you've got obviously North Carolina, you got Bloody Hammers, great band. You mentioned before Big Business, Year of the Cobra. So, I mean, there are a lot more bands doing the duo thing instead of having to, add on more band members. I mean, I guess just talk a bit about how you and Brenna decided, not to really bring on any other permanent members and just kind of keep it between you two, as the band's nucleus.
Well, I mean, we work really well together in terms of bouncing ideas back and forth. And really it's coming from a rhythm section. In my opinion, the rhythm section, obviously I'm biased, but but the rhythm section is really what, it's kind of like in sports, right? So defense wins games. In my opinion, the rhythm section, we play defense, right? We're not flashy. We're not gonna we're not out in front where you have your lead guitar players, obviously like an attackman or at the front of the field, and then or your vocalist. Obviously, I guess Brenna's playing both, but you get the idea. But defense wins games. So a really solid rhythm section to me really makes a really good band. And even what did the Stones say when Charlie Watts died? They were like, the Stones just died.
Yeah, it's true.
He was the backbone of this, and I'm a big Ringo fan too. And it's to me, Ringo, that's the little shuffles and the little things that's what really makes it to me. So, so that was the one reason, was for the writing aspect, that we just write well together as a rhythm section. And the second piece is logistics. The more band members you have, the harder it is to reschedule practice. And
good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, the fewer moving pieces and the fewer moving parts, sometimes the more efficient the organism.
Sure. That's a great analogy, comparing it to the sports, the defense. I never thought of it that way. And you're right. It's almost like the drums are sort of the goalie, maybe the bass is sort of the defenseman, and and you're right, the attackers are the guitar and maybe piano or any type of an instrumentation. But that's a really cool analogy. I never heard that before, but I like that. That's really that's very intuitive. The one thing, talking about your guys' sound, that stands out to me compared to, I think, a lot of your musical peers, is that you guys have those punk elements on those faster tracks. Which is why, to me, I know a lot of people, when I talk about Crystal Spiders, it's a typical bands that compare you to, whether it's Electric Wizard or Caius, but I think actually you guys have a lot more of an Orange Goblin sound to me, because you've got sort of like a Motorhead laden type of aura to you as well. It has sort of that real just old school heavy punk kind of sound on some of those songs. So, I mean, talk about the importance really for you guys that, of keeping, those speedier parts as a part of your overall sound, where I think most really in your area, in your genre and area, really refrain from getting sped up, where they usually like to keep it about mid-tempo to slower tempo type of tracks. Well,
I mean, the more dynamics you get, the more interesting it is. I mean, and I'm speaking generalities, obviously, because again, I love Dope Smoker. I mean, I think there's an Ohm poster back here somewhere. I'm down. I get that.
Sure.
But at least for us, I'm actually a big fan of swing music and big band music, and Brenna loves the classic metal. She was actually just at a Priest concert last night. I host trivia, so I couldn't go. But I wanted to go. But she loves the classic metal, and she and I both love Motorhead. Obviously, who doesn't? But so we got to know where it all comes from too. Just because, to me anyway, doom is slowed down blues music and slowed down swing music.
Yes.
And that's why I'm playing mostly syncopated rhythms. But you got to throw a couple 2/4s in there. We still love the Misfits, we still love the Cramps, we still love the Dead Kennedys, we still love all these things are still influences. And why can't we put one of those on the record? Why can't we put 2 or 3 fast parts on the record? And with the way that Brent and I usually play live is, we play off of each other's tempos anyway. So. And you'll hear a couple of that on the tracks where it's we'll start at one tempo and we'll end at a completely different tempo, but it's natural. It's not a oh, stop, and here we're going and doing this. It just feels like this is the natural motion of that this song should take.
Mhm.
So we usually don't set out to be like, hey, we're like every once in a while, we're like, hey, let's write just a fast 2/4 banger. But and like be done in 2 minutes. 2 riffs, you're allowed 2 riffs. That's it. But no, it's usually just comes out with just how we're playing and how we're feeling it. And we'll try one thing and be like, that didn't work. Let's table it. Like we actually had like In Medias Res was an entirely different song that was originally going to go on Molt. And we didn't like it. It felt too slow. It felt like a little different. Like it just, the vibe wasn't right. But then when we reapproached it with the new sound, it fit and it was good and it worked. So yeah, we just kind of let the songwriting guide where the song's going to end up. Who knows?
Sure. That's a great approach. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's what makes your guys sound really unique compared, like I said, to a lot of the other bands that are in your genre or subgenre, especially in Doom. So I mean, now obviously the record's coming out now, in just about 2 weeks. I know it's not going to happen anytime in the immediate future, but what is, I guess, the overall ideal plan for you guys, once things start to open up a little bit more, whenever that's going to be? Because I mean, now, like I said, you've got 2 records, and Molt's such a great record. It would really suck if that was sort of, put off and you guys weren't really able to kind of get out there and really promote that. So ideally, if things did open up, real soon in a month or two, what would be the plan? Are you guys going to look to do festivals, or you get a tour?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your,
I mean, I'd love to do a tour. We've been talking to like friends of ours are out, like from Cyclona. They're
sure.
They're like, come on to England, like we'll show you around, like let's play some shows. Like we've gotten a lot of good feedback from our Ripple mates, and we would love to set up shows with those guys. And we are ready and down to play. Festivals, cool. Small little weekend tours, cool. 2 to 3 weeks. Like we're just open to like play these songs live, and we are going to do a mix. Don't worry, we're not going to put Molt on the back burner and just play all the new stuff. Sure. But yeah, and find a nice, good mix. And if we get a good, live touring guitarist and get that going, and maybe their style will influence the next record. Who knows? Like,
sure.
Yeah, it all depends on when this stuff opens back up.
I know. It's
travel again.
Right, it's the ultimate question. I know that no one knows about. Well, I mean, in the meantime, obviously, to our viewers, go ahead and check out Morieris. It comes out October 1st on Ripple. And Tradd, why don't you go ahead and just let the viewers know where they can go to check out, keep up with the band and the happenings, and when they can, check out Morieris and the rest of your music.
Yeah, so you can go on all the normal spots, Spotify and Bandcamp and all the such. But I would say just wait till October 1st. You can still pre-order a couple of the limited edition vinyls. I'm a big vinyl fan myself, so grab a copy of one of those. I think we all got a couple of those left. You can head over to Ripple's site as well and pick it up there. But yeah, I'm going to hopefully drive around a couple record stores and see if they'll take it as well. I know like Static Age out in Nashville is going to take it, and a bunch of local guys will take it. But hey, if any record stores you guys want a copy, let us know.
Very cool. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Ripple's right down the road, not far from where I am. So maybe that's what I'll have to do. All right. We'll try it. Thanks a lot again. Once again, Crystal Spiders, Morieris comes out October 1st on Ripple. And Tradd, thanks again, man, for coming on. Appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Matt, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Nice meeting you. Take care, bud.